Hey folks, two People's Choice GPUs and no boring tests this time. That's what I'm aiming for. Most reviewers will show you these cards running in perfect conditions, inside high-end PCs, but I'm here to show you the truth. Because let's be real, nobody's pairing these cards with top-tier CPUs. That's why you're seeing the very popular Ryzen 7700 in action, a solid mid-ranger. It's roughly on par with the newer Ryzen 9600X. The 7700 has a couple more cores, while the 9600X has higher clocks, and is just, newer overall. This one, I got it off AliExpress for $150. Now, let's talk GPUs. The RX 9060 XT, the 16GB version, turned out to be pretty interesting. In the last video, I tested it thoroughly with this CPU, and honestly, I really like the combo. They go together surprisingly well. But here's the real question. Which one is better, the 9060 XT or the 5060 Ti? The prices are actually pretty close. Sure, the tough version from Asus cost a bit more, so let's say the average difference is about $50, around 10%, give or take. I showed you the tough version in the last video. What really surprised me was the weight, under 1 kilogram, which is unusually light for a modern GPU. But today we're focusing on the more budget-friendly palette version. So let's take a look. Unboxing sound. One thing before we start. The manufacturer highlights its compact size, saying it's great for small form factor builds, and that's one of the main reasons I grabbed it. If you want to see a tiny PC build with this card, hit that subscribe button. As soon as I opened the slim box and wrestled out the second inner one, I was greeted by stickers. That's it. Literally nothing else. Zero. But wait, where's the adapter I got used to with the RTX 40,000 series? Could it be they finally realized the standard 8 pins are just more convenient and that most power supplies already have them? Makes sense. Taking out the GPU, the first thing I noticed, it's really light. Naturally, I had to weigh it and oh yeah! Compared to the Asus TUF, the difference is obvious even at a glance. The TUF is noticeably thicker, and while both cards have plastic shrouds, the TUF has a metal backplate. The pallets is plastic. But to be fair, for a card this light, plastic is more than enough. The PCB alone could hold it together. What really matters here is cooling. Now, for the test setup, same rig, Ryzen 7700, as I mentioned earlier, 32GB of RAM at 6000 MHz, and an Asus TUF motherboard. Basically, a typical mid-range setup for 2025. Since I'd already benchmarked the Radeon, it was time for the 5060 Ti, and here it is, installed and ready to go. Honestly, this build brings back memories. Back in the day, cards of this thickness were everywhere. Now, it's a rare sight. Alright, let's start with Firmark plus Cinebench R23 running simultaneously to check power draw and temps under load. So here's the result. The system with the RX card pulled 353 watts. With the RTX 5060 Ti, it was 356 watts, just 3 watts more. Basically a tie, but temps. I didn't film this all in one day. It's July now, and the heat wave just kicked in. Room temperature was 27 degrees Celsius during the RTX test, while it was 20 degrees Celsius with the RX. Back then, the CPU hit 70 degrees Celsius, now it's 72 degrees Celsius, not a huge difference. The RX GPU ran at 48 degrees Celsius in this test. The 5060 Ti, though, sat at 72 degrees Celsius. Now that's not a fair apples-to-apples comparison, since the room is 7 degrees hotter now. Still, the TUF version would have run cooler, no doubt. And yeah, the palette card is a bit louder too, though still relatively quiet. Alright, let's move on to some gaming benchmarks, starting with 3D Mark Time Spy. Not bad at all. The results are really close, but as you can see, AMD scores nearly 600 points higher in the graphics department. The overall score, 1.46% higher for AMD. Now to be fair, the CPU score with the NVIDIA card was a bit better, otherwise the gap would have been even wider. Still, both score better than 75% of all PCs tested on this benchmark. So yeah, respectable mid-range builds, no doubt. Next up, Speedway. This one tests ray tracing performance, and oh boy, NVIDIA pulls ahead by a mile, 4,036 points versus 2,981. That's a whopping 35.4% lead. Clearly, when it comes to ray tracing, Green Team flexes hard. Then we've got VRMark. If you're a fan of virtual reality, well, your NVIDIA is your buddy here too, scoring 8.56% higher. Of course, let's not forget, NVIDIA cards are also about 10% more expensive on average, so yeah, keep that in mind. Now on to PC Mark 10, which evaluates overall system performance, not just the GPU. Time for games. Let's kick things off with Avatar: The Frontiers of Pandora. Ultra preset, FSR 3 enabled for the red team, and DLSS on quality for the green team. All games tested at 1440p, or as we like to call it, Quad HD. So what can I say, folks? Not a great start. Under 50 FPS on both cards. Yikes. Oh, and by the way, the game eats up 13 gigabytes of VRAM in a second, and 20 gigabytes of system RAM, just a fun fact. Hard to pick a winner here, both struggling. Let's lower the graphics to the medium preset and try again. Now that's more like it, and things quickly become clear. DLSS really shines, and NVIDIA starts pulling ahead. We're talking 85 FPS versus 65 FPS. That's a 30.7% lead for the green team. Boom. Control next. No DLSS, no FSR, just raw native 1440p, no ray tracing. And guess what? AMD takes the lead.
No CPU bottleneck here. If anything, it's the opposite. Also, surprisingly, NVIDIA is drawing 15 to 20 watts more power in this test. That's rare. Usually AMD is the hungrier one, so good job, Team Red. And also, this not-so-new game uses over 10 gigabytes of VRAM, and yet manufacturers are still out here pumping out 8 gigabyte cards. Why? Seriously, why? Final score is 83 FPS for AMD, 80 FPS for NVIDIA. That's a 3.75% win for AMD. Let's crank up ray tracing now. No DLSS, no FSR. I honestly expected NVIDIA to destroy AMD here, but surprise, while 30 FPS isn't really playable either way, AMD is still ahead. 32 versus 29. That's a 10.34% advantage. The plot thickens. Cyberpunk 2077 next. Let's go all in. Turn on every feature that generates fake frames. FSR 3 plus frame generation for AMD, DLSS 4 plus DLSS frame generation 4x for NVIDIA. And as you'd expect, when DLSS 4x frame generation is on the table, NVIDIA is untouchable. Even visually, the difference is obvious. Still, AMD holds its own quite well. But yeah, NVIDIA wins by 39 FPS or a 39% lead. Now, for the death-defying act, we disable all upscalers and frame generators, just raw power. And honestly, I thought NVIDIA would win by a wider margin here. Yes, both are unplayable in this mode, but NVIDIA is only ahead by 1 frame per second. That's 2.78%. Okay. Now, no ray tracing, no DLSS, no FSR, just clean raster performance. You might notice a slight color difference between the two cards. Can't say one looks better than the other, it's really subtle, but if you have a favorite, drop it in the comments. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. And now the final Cyberpunk test. No ray tracing, no upscaling. Surprise, AMD wins again, even if just barely, 4.12% ahead of NVIDIA. Doom the Dark Ages. So as you can see, monitoring works fine on AMD, but with NVIDIA, the game thinks you're trying to cheat and crashes. No joke. Enabling FPS overlay just kills the session. So instead, I had to use Steam's built-in FPS counter up there in the corner. And while I couldn't get an exact average, it's pretty clear NVIDIA was delivering more frames overall. The Witcher 3 RT Ultra preset, FSR 2 on quality for AMD, and DLSS on quality for NVIDIA. Ray tracing tanks performance, no surprise there, not quite enough frames to be comfy. But look at this. AMD edges out a win again. 50 FPS versus 48, a 4.17% lead. Now here's where NVIDIA pulls out a hidden ace. DLSS frame generation, which is supported in more games than AMD's frame generation. Sure, you want at least 60 native frames to get the most out of it, but for a single-player game, it's totally fine. With frame generation on, NVIDIA jumps to 77 FPS, while AMD stays at 50. That's a massive 54% lead. But if we keep DLSS and FSR in quality and turn off ray tracing, suddenly AMD takes off. Over 100 FPS, and the RX 9060 XT proves it's a raster king. 40.96% faster. That's no joke. Dead Space Remake.
This game is my go-to for testing stutter because it stutters on almost everything. But this PC handles it well on both cards. No DLSS or FSR here because FSR especially tends to smudge the visuals a bit, just raw output. Strangely, NVIDIA pulls less power here. The game just doesn't seem to hit it as hard. Still, 6960 XT outperforms with a 12.31% lead. Red Dead Redemption 2. No upscalers, ultra settings. Because honestly, the game runs well enough and it's too beautiful not to enjoy it full quality. Once again, AMD edges ahead. Final result, 12 more FPS for Team Red. That's a 15% win. STALKER 2 Heart of Chernobyl. Ultra settings. This time I went full throttle with FSR 3 and DLSS with frame generation. Result? 115 FPS on AMD, 92 on NVIDIA. 25% lead for AMD. Yep, that one caught me off guard too. So what did we learn? This was a mixed benchmark session, just like a real user experience. Sometimes we used upscalers, sometimes not. No golden test bench, just a regular PC. And in these conditions, the RX 960 XT came out on top more often. 10 wins for AMD, 6 wins for NVIDIA. But where NVIDIA won, the leads were bigger, especially in games with frame generation. And that's no surprise because when DLSS 4X kicks in, NVIDIA flies. On average, NVIDIA delivered 39.4% more FPS in the games it dominated. So here's the bottom line. If we talk raw GPU horsepower, AMD clearly has the stronger chip, but NVIDIA has the better tech. DLSS, frame generation, broader game support, it's all in their corner. That said, AMD has really caught up this time. Power draw, surprisingly good. Temps, totally manageable. Ray tracing, they've definitely stepped up. Honestly, I can't give you a one-size-fits-all recommendation here. It really comes down to what games you play and what features you value. Personally, I'd go with NVIDIA just because my work software is better optimized for it. But I know people who pick AMD for other reasons. Some even say AMD has better color rendering in Photoshop. Go figure. So yeah, raw performance goes to AMD, features go to NVIDIA. But in the end, both cards are absolutely capable of 1440p gaming at great settings. And AMD is cheaper, so I can confidently recommend both depending on your needs. Now, I'm curious, what would you pick, my friend, and why? Drop it in the comments. Oh, and don't forget, see you soon.